We'll make it a visit. We'll have a lovely time. I don't remember inviting you. Anna, what are you saying?
If you love listening to this show, please consider giving a rating and a review on Amazon Alexa or wherever you listen. We want to continue bringing you this amazing content, and part of our ability to do that means that we need a big audience. Now, it may not seem like much, but rating and reviewing the show will help more people find us, just like how you found this show. Simply on any podcast platform, search for a show, scroll down to the bottom, and push 5 stars. It's that easy. Thanks for supporting the show. Today, I'm joined by Lindsay McCoy, who is the CEO of Plaine Products, a hair and body care products company on a mission to rid the world of single-use plastics, one bottle at a time, I suppose. So welcome. Thank you so much, Lindsay.
Thank you. Thank you, Scott, for having me. I appreciate it.
All right. Now, you seem to have a very strong connection with the Bahamas. I think you visited there when you were young, and eventually I believe you may have even lived there for some time.
I did.
And I wonder how that experience kind of helped shape your perspective and your experience in terms of, what you're doing today around plastics and sustainability.
Yeah, so my husband's from the Bahamas. My background is actually nonprofit management. So when we moved there, I ended up running an environmental nonprofit. At the time, my main environmental experience was living in Boulder, Colorado. So I was familiar with the term zero waste, and that qualified me as an environmental expert in the Bahamas 20 years ago. And so I got to meet a lot of really brilliant people who were coming to do research there and were coming to do conservation work there, because the great thing about the Bahamas is they still have a lot of the natural resources that we've lost in the States. It's a low population density, so a lot of the fish species, coral species that have died out or been overfished in other places are still there. So in getting to work with them, I started to visually see plastic on the beaches, in the water, on the roads, and they don't have the same infrastructure in that country that we do to make things disappear. So this idea that plastics are around forever, that you use something for 5 minutes and then throw it away, there is no away, became very apparent to me. So I started doing the things that people are talking about doing now, carrying the reusable water bottle and the reusable bag. But one place I couldn't find a solution was all of those little plastic bottles in the shower. So when we decided to move back to the U.S., I called my sister and I said, hey, I think I want to try and solve this from a different angle and provide a solution. And that's what we did.
Now, the plastic waste that you saw in the Bahamas, was it attributed to the local residents and visitors basically not taking care of the refuse on the beach level?
It's a little bit of everything. I mean, I think it's a lack of infrastructure. So, the sanitation system there is overwhelmed. You're dealing with a nation of 700 islands. So all of their infrastructure is pretty stressed. You are having people from cruise ships and from tourism, for sure, things wash ashore, and then just basic littering. But I think the real thing is that it's the same problem we're having here in the U.S. of plastic piling up. There, it's just a little bit more visual, and it's not as tucked away as we've managed to make it in this country.
So aside from the visible factor, so yes, you can see it, but how does that translate into either impacting, let's say, commerce or even fishing or even tourism for that matter? And, the kinds of quantification around loss of economic value.
Well, certainly, as a tourism industry, you want it to be beautiful, and having litter is not. And I think really, if you take a step back, plastics are so tied into the larger climate change issue, which is a huge part of what low-lying countries like the Bahamas are looking at. Increased strength of hurricanes, rising sea levels are a huge threat to their way of life. And then definitely you also have, damage to reefs. You have fish ingesting microplastics now. So when plastics do end up in the water, the sunlight breaks them down into smaller and smaller pieces. And so they're entering the food chain, which is harmful to the marine life, but then also to us ingesting it on that level. So it's all, intertwined in a number of ways.
Absolutely. Now, you had a very interesting experience where you actually took, I guess, a 10-day a trip, a plastic research sailing vessel called Expedition to actually visit some of the kind of the largest hotspots where plastics are. Can you tell us about where you went and what that experience was, and what was kind of the net effect of that experience?
Sure. It is a group called Expedition. It's an all-female, round-the-world plastic research trip. So they have sort of designed it specifically to hit many of the plastic hotspots around the world and are doing research on land and at sea, trying to get a better handle on what types of plastics are ending up in the ocean to best figure out how to prioritize turning off the tap on land. So, I got to sail from Aruba to Panama. And definitely as we got closer to Panama, the way it's shaped, all of the prevailing winds and currents are just piling up plastics from throughout the Caribbean onto their shore. So a very high density of plastic that is not theirs. And certainly we saw a lot on the surface, but even more concerning to me was we dropped a sample bottle down about 75 feet and you pull up that water, run that water through a microfilter, and you would see all of these little dots, and those were plastic. And it's plastic that has broken down into tiny, tiny particles and is a permanent part of the water column now. So that to me was sort of, while it is great that there are many efforts to clean up plastics from the ocean, at some point it's too late. Once it's there and it starts to break down, we're not going to be able to clean that up. And so it really is incumbent upon us to turn off that tap and figure out ways to make sure that we're not constantly putting all of this waste on the planet, but also into the ocean.
Yeah, I think you raised a really interesting point that I think I love to explore on a different episode with maybe an expert around, how do we address the microplastic, after the fact, right? So the sheer volume, it's one thing to try to gather the refuse that's floating in the water, but it's another to try to, either chemically or some other fashion, try to break down the molecular structure of the petroleum-based derivative.
There's been some recent research that says, we typically ingest a credit card's worth of plastic between the air and the food and the water. We are currently conducting a human experiment on how that's going to affect us as we move forward.
Sounds good. Well, I think next time we go out for sushi, we need to ask, would you like some plastic with that? Yeah. So let's get into Plaine Products. What is it, and how are you looking to solve this plastic bottle issue?
So I just want to say quickly, though, that, it's going to take a lot of solutions to solve this issue, but I think it is one that can be solved. There's so many things that we're facing as a country, as a world, and what I love about this is something we can make choices and take positive action on. Before the 1950s, 95% of packaging was reclaimed and reused. So it wasn't that long ago that we had a different system of consuming goods, and it's really only been in the last 60 years that we've been convinced as a society that things should be disposable. Mm-hmm. So Plaine Products is an effort to provide an alternative. So we offer products in aluminum bottles, and then when you need a refill, we send you a refill bottle, you switch the pump over, and then we pay for that bottle to come back to us, and we wash and sterilize, get it refilled, and send it back out into the world. So
talk to us about the economics of that. And again, I'm just trying to understand also the business model, because is the interaction directly with the consumer, or is this a B2B play for you guys?
Well, we actually meet the consumers in a variety of different points. So we have a website where people can order products. The bottle and the pump come to you. When you're running low, you order a refill or you subscribe and we send it automatically. Along with that refill bottle comes a return label. So you can just put the empty bottle, put the return label on, and the post office picks it up and brings it back to us. We also have a number of wholesale partners, and then we just recently added a bulk refill option. So we'll send a 3.5-gallon bucket to a refill shop, and people can refill on their own if that's how they choose to do it, as opposed to using the postal service.
Okay.
So,
And can you give us a sense in terms of the product catalog of the kinds of bottles that we're talking about?
sure. The size. So we have shampoo, conditioner, body wash, body lotion, hand wash, all in 16-ounce bottles, and the products are aloe based instead of water based. So they actually are pretty concentrated and last 3 to 4 months. On the low end, some people are more 6 to 9 months, depends on hair length and number of times you shower, and a very complicated interplay of factors. And then we also have travel size. We have a facial line that also come in smaller bottles because, again, they last a little bit longer. So it would take a long time to go through a 16-ounce bottle of face wash.
So a few things to take into consideration. I think people tend to have very strong personal preferences around the kinds of products, such as, let's say, soap, shampoo, and other personal hygiene products, let's say. So does it require for them to only utilize your inside ingredients, or could they essentially purchase something else and then put it into your containers? And of course, doesn't exactly solve the plastic issue, but
Well,
it
it does. I mean, certainly, as
from a bulk.
refill shops are popping up around the country,
Mhm.
that is definitely an option. But for us, we are offering a pretty general shampoo that has great, ingredients: paraben-free, sulfate-free, phthalate-free, palm oil-free. There was no point in creating this environmental packaging system and then putting a bunch of chemicals in it. And we encourage people to, adjust it based on their needs. So for finer, straighter hair like me, I use a lot of shampoo and let it sit there for a few minutes. Whereas people that have curlier hair use a lot of conditioner and let that sit for a few minutes and go light on the shampoo. So there are ways of adjusting it. And, kind of as I mentioned at the beginning, we don't expect this to be the only product that works for everyone. It is a solution. And it is a way of solving it, but there are shampoo bars, there are other products on the market that also allow people to go plastic free. And so we just sort of are encouraging more of a conscious consumerism and people to just play a more proactive role in the way that they interact with products and companies.
Have you guys calculated kind of the net effect in terms of the fact that it still requires the consumers to actually consume the contents within and then ship it back, and then I guess it gets cleaned and refilled and sent back to them? The footprint and the greenhouse emission that comes from the actual logistics of the supply chain and the movement of goods, how does that play into, let's say, versus, let's say, they get a refill, but in the refill is something that's either biodegradable container or something to that extent, so they're not having to ship back the actual aluminum containers themselves?
So I've actually yet to see a biodegradable container that really works with these products. I mean, we are pouches that people are trying, but again, the problem with plastic continues to be that you can sometimes recycle it once, maybe twice, but that's still going to end up in a landfill at some point and be off-gassing methane, which is actually worse than carbon. Whereas with aluminum, the good news is you can recycle it infinitely. There's no quality loss. So we should be able to get to a point where we're just reusing the same aluminum over and over and over again, is the goal. We also make a choice to use the Postal Service, so we're not creating any additional trips. My understanding with a lot of the e-commerce, the carbon concerns is that, UPS or FedEx is making a specific trip to your house, next day, 2-day shipping. And so that's creating a lot more carbon in the world. Whereas if we're using the Postal Service, they're coming to your door anyway. So they can drop off the package, they can pick up the package without creating additional unnecessary trips into neighborhoods.
So why haven't others already done this? Because aluminum bottles or containers have been around for decades of different size and configuration. So anybody could have bottled it with various content. Why do you feel like that hasn't already taken off already? And are other competitors already doing what you're doing?
I will say it's probably because plastic is cheap. And it is a pretty amazing material. I mean, it's easily moldable. It is incredibly durable. It doesn't break. It doesn't dent. It's light. So there are a lot of wonderful characteristics, and I understand how we got to where we are, without thinking about the long-term impacts of all of that plastic still being around in a few hundred years. But I think as that is becoming more apparent, as the leaching of chemicals out of the plastics into us and into our products is becoming apparent, as we're learning more, we're all of a sudden realizing, hey, there was something to the way we used to do things, where it was more durable packaging that had real value to the company and to the consumer and is reused. So we are starting to see more people look into this. Loop, a TerraCycle venture, is working with larger companies to develop durable packaging with, Haagen-Dazs and P&G, and we're actually partnering with them as well. So there are people that are starting to move into this space, and we've certainly seen a lot of support from consumers. We've experienced great growth with minimal advertising investment of people just excited to have an option and be able to play a role in minimizing their waste.
And in terms of your business model, is it a subscription model where it's kind of a monthly or quarterly or some sort of frequency, or is it a kind of a per product transaction?
So we offer both. So if you want to come and purchase one time, that's fine. And then you do have the option when you come back to let us know that you don't need a pump a second time and you do need a return label. Or if you're one of those people that just doesn't want to have to ever come back, you just want to check the box and not have to worry about it. And again, we have a subscription model on a variety of different time frames. And you can even subscribe for 4 different products on 4 different time frames. I mean, we really try, and our goal is to make it as convenient and lower as many barriers to entry as possible.
One practical question, and then we're going to wrap it up for today, is if someone purchases, let's say, a shampoo and conditioner, plus the bottles, of course, when it gets shipped back for cleaning and refill, what do they default to in the meantime while it comes back?
That's actually why our goal is you order the product, comes with pump, you then order your refill bottle or schedule it such that it comes before you run out. So it's not your same bottle going round and round. You get a refill, switch the pump over, and then when it's convenient, send back the empty to us.
Understood.
So it is a little bit different way of thinking about it and thinking about the way that we consume right now, but it works.
Very interesting. And how can people learn more?
Yes, they can visit Plaine Products, Plaine with an E, actually. My sister and I started the company together, so our maiden names were Della Plaine. So that's where we came up with that. So plaineproducts.com.
Terrific. So with that, I've been joined by Lindsay McCoy, who is the CEO of Plaine Products. Thanks for joining today.
Thank you, Scott.
If you've enjoyed this episode, take a moment to rate our show on any podcast platform that you listen to. Scroll down to the bottom and push 5 stars. It's that easy. And as always, thanks for listening.